Welcome everyone. Appreciate you spending some time today joining us for this webinar. We are going to talk today about purchase order receiving and using one of our guide products called Scan and Track. So with that, let me get to the agenda slide. Just from a logistics standpoint, with this being a webinar, it's not conducive to be interactive. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat as we go through here, and we will save some time at the end for some Q&A. But from an introduction standpoint, we've got myself, Randy Kenny, the Guide Product Manager and Guide Consulting Manager here at Guide. I've been with Guide for over 10 years now, and prior to that, I was with a customer that was using XA, and I've been with them for 22 years. So over 30 years of experience using the XA product. We also have Jeff Snyder with us, who will be presenting some slides from a customer where we implemented this. Jeff, you want to do a quick intro of yourself?
So yeah, I may have bumped into some of you from time to time. Jeff Snyder with Guide for 17 plus years. Been banging around what used to be called Mapex and then XA since '79. Don't do the math, please. It's longer than I care to remember. But in any event, a lot of experience in a data collection over the years. DC Connect with IBM, and then MDCC, MES, and had the opportunity to get involved in the R&D side of the fence with Guide on the Scan and Track. Involved in this area here, purchase receiving, cycle counting, which is a whole nother topic, of course, and then the Wizard and pallet track. So in any event, glad to be on board.
Yep. And also Wendy Broom, our marketing director. Wendy, any introduction from you?
Hello everyone, Wendy Broom here. I, like Randy said, am the marketing director. I have about 10 years of ERP experience under my belt. Started in the CPG space, and now here I am with Guide, and thank you for joining us.
Yep. Very good. So from an agenda standpoint, I've got just a few slides. Want to just kind of set the stage from an overall standpoint, kind of what is Scan and Track, what are some of the benefits, and then we're going to get into some specific cases around the PO receiving, since that's what the webinar is about here today. So I've got a use case where we implemented this at one customer, more of a slide deck kind of presentation, going through what their challenges were and what we did using Scan and Track to alleviate that, and some metrics that we had in place for how we measured success. Jeff is going to go through another example with another customer of how we streamlined the whole PO receiving to put away process, and show you some portion of a demo as well with what we did at that particular customer. And then, like I said, we'll save some time at the end for some Q&A. So here's your team today. We just introduced ourselves. So basically, from an overview standpoint, Scan and Track itself, it's a mobile platform. So you can do your transactions using tablets and smartphones, or all-in-one type barcode devices. But basically, all of the XA transactions, inventory transactions, and labor, we can do through Scan and Track through the same user interface, same platform. We also have full support for picking, shipping, and important to note here, as in green screen. So we made the conscious design decision early on to make sure we emulated the functionality that you can do in green screen, because it's, as you probably know, more robust than what you can do in PowerLink even today at release 10. So from Scan and Track, we can emulate the same types of things like partial shipments and shipping from other locations other than default stock locations, things where there are limitations on what you can do in PowerLink today. We do have full support for physical inventory and cycle counting, as Jeff alluded to, in a paperless manner. And again, that's kind of its own demo, if that's of interest. Again, anything you hear or see today, if you see something that you would like a personalized demo on, of course, reach out to us and we can certainly set that up for a much more interactive type session. One of the key differentiators is that we are 100% system link based. So, and that is the transaction engine. And what that means is that we are actually using the XA database as our database. There's no shadow files or anything like that. We're using system link when we do the transactions. And so we're getting real-time verification, whether that transaction's gonna post or not. And if it passes all the XA validation, then it will post the transaction, and you'll see that how quickly that happens in the demo portion today. But that's an important thing that it's just as if you were keying the transaction in a PowerLink screen, a NetLink screen, or even a green screen. The same types of edits that you would get back, the same errors, the same warnings, we're going to get back through System Link. It is a browser-based interface, so and it's consistent across all the different transactions that you would do. So it gives you the ability to get rid of green screen. Things like PQs and MQs and ons and offs. Those are still in green screen even at release 10. But we can handle all of those through the same browser interface via Scan and Track. Licensing is by device, not by user. You don't need additional XA users. And it's by concurrent device. So you could physically have 20 devices, but if only 10 people, say, would be logged in at one given time, that's how we license the product. So it does help to keep the costs down, especially if you're 24/7 operation or have multiple sites across different time zones. So that's all part of the base product. We do have some add-on modules. One is called Pallet Track, and this is for managing pallets all the way from building them up from product coming off of manufacturing lines or in through your for purchase orders through your dock. You can load the product up on pallets, consolidate it, shrink wrap it, whatever you do, print a label that represents what we call a license plate that represents everything on that pallet, and then all of your moves through the warehouse from all the way through to picking and shipping can be managed. So again, a very robust add-on module because not everyone needs that capability. We also have another add-on, which we call Intelligent Wizards or iWizards, and this is all about manufacturing order processing at an operation level. So everything from tracking your labor, issuing material, back flushing. If you have crew clocking, we've got very robust capability there. So everything related to manufacturing order and processing those MOs at an operation level, which is why we call it a wizard. It kind of walks you through each operation all the way to the RM at the end of the last operation when you receive it. So it really provides complete visibility to your working process, your WIP as you're working those manufacturing orders. You can see exactly where everything is, and we do a lot of the editing that the select and edit process would do. So when you get to the select and edit for like your labor transactions, there should be no errors is the intent. We always look to implement best practices, when we implement a solution like this, and I think you'll see that in both of the use cases today. We can really personalize the solution to fit exactly what you need from a business standpoint. Everything from label designs to how we capture the data, the way the screens flow. We can even add additional business logic and edits if need be. So it's very personalizable, I like to say, versus without having to do any kind of customization to XA itself. So release transparent, which is a key thing. We do have support for barcode labeling native within Scan and Track, but we can also interface to other systems. If you're already using one of these, for your labeling processes, we can do it either way, or generate labels and work with you on design of those labels. That's a common thing we do during implementation, and you'll see examples of that in the use cases coming up. There is a admin area that allows for a high level of configurability of Scan and Track and how it works. We can create badge groups as an example, where you can assign certain transactions to certain groups of people depending on what they do. So they don't have to necessarily see or have access to everything you can do in Scan and Track, just limit it to the functions that they do. We have full support for barcoding, turnaround numbers if you use those. Basically just very flexible printing options and the way we can configure it so you can generate labels or even paperwork, whatever you need at the point that you need to generate it and use it. And it's truly a global solution, so you can have one install, if you will, of Scan and Track. Runs on a Windows IIS server, but it can be connected to multiple XA environments, physical locations, multiple iSeries from a single install. And the licensing is concurrent across all of the physical locations you may have or XA environments. So in today's example, when Jeff gets into the demo, you'll see he's working out of his home office in Florida today, hitting a data center that we have in Los Angeles, California, to serve up the Scan and Track screens, and that's connected to an iSeries and XA environment back in our Cincinnati office in our locations there. So you'll see it operating truly in a global environment and how fast things work. Okay, so that's really it from an overview standpoint, just to kind of set the stage. I wanted to walk through one example of where we implemented this with a customer and some of the benefits that they saw. Just for some background, they're located in the Midwest. They're a manufacturing company of rotary unions, electrical slip rings, things that are used in a lot of different types of industrial machinery and manufacturing processes. Have about 500 employees, and from an annual transaction standpoint, they had, at the time we implemented this, they were over 52,000 transactions to stock, and of those, almost 20,000 were going to inspection. So what they had when we started was this kind of a mess. This was the problem that they were really trying to solve. We did a value stream map as when we first started engagement with them, really to see where the problem areas are, so we knew where we wanted to address in our future state design. So what they had was a lot of different areas. They had product coming in from their purchase orders, and they would receive it at the dock, but then it went and it got moved around, and all of these areas that you see in red were what we identified as inventory blind spots. So they knew it was there, but they had no idea where it was. And so the problem was that they needed material, at their lines, and it was just taking a while to get there, and they didn't know. It could take 4 to 5 days sometimes. In fact, they had to get their average days of stock when we did this value stream map at the beginning, was to get it through a product that did not need to go through inspection. It was over 2 days, and product that did need to go to inspection was over 4 days. So this is the problem that we were trying to solve, was how can we get this? They wanted to get it down to under 24 hours from the time they received it to where it needed to be, as well as eliminating these inventory blind spots. So they wanted to know where the product was at all times. So with that in mind, the other issue they had was they just had a lot of RP transactions that were happening all over the place. We identified 78 different ways that they were doing RPs, different people. We had 36 different workstations, 22 individuals. So it was, a RP transaction is something you want to have some control over because of the financial implications and the three-way matching and so forth. So they were having all kinds of different people doing it, different places, in different ways. And so that was another issue that we were trying to overcome. So I'm going to show you the 2B state here in the next slide. But before I get there, I wanted to let you have a visual of these labels that we generated. So in the future state, when they do their RD transaction, we immediately generate one of these two labels. And the only difference between the two really is that this one says inspection required, the one on the right. And so they knew, right away that that had to go on a cart that was going to go to the inspection area. And if it didn't say inspection required, then it was going to go on a cart that would be put away to stock. So in this barcode that we put on here represents all of the pertinent information: the purchase order number, the line number, the item number that we're receiving, the quantity, things like that. So they're pretty much identical, other than the inspection required, which told them what cart to put it on so that it then traveled to the appropriate location. So with that visual, this is kind of the to-be state that we implemented with them. So the first thing, they do the receipt to dock, and it immediately generates that label that I just showed you. And depending on whether it was flagged, your inspect on receipt flag, whether it was yes or no, that's on the item revision, it would automatically then do an RI transaction if it was inspection required, and it would generate the label that said that, or it would do an RP transaction right away automatically. And that RP was to what they called a value stream queue, or basically it was a cart that they would put that product on. They then had conveyance people that came through every 15, 20 minutes that would take the carts, and based on where it needed to go, if it went to inspection, they would take it there. And then the inspectors would do, after they do their inspection process, would do the PQ transaction. Again, all of this through Scan and Track. And they would identify the good parts versus anything that had to go somewhere for rework or whatever, if they found defects with it. And then if needed, if only some of the parts were good that were going to go into stock or to a line location, they could generate another label at that point with the new quantity. But in both cases, they ended up on a cart that then the conveyance people knew exactly where to take it. And once they took it to where it needed to go, we did a modified TW transaction. We called it a put away. And basically at this point, all they had to do was scan that barcode label, the barcode that was on the label that has all the pertinent information of what they're moving, the item number, the quantity, all of that, and then a second scan to the location that they're putting it to. And with 2 scans, they were able to put that product exactly where it needed to be. And at all time through here, they never lost visibility to where that product was. They always knew whether it was on a cart, and those carts obviously were non-nettable to MRP, so they wouldn't get consumed until it actually got put into a stock location. So if it was in inspection or waiting to be put away, MRP didn't take a look at it or available to promise or any of that until it was actually in a stock location that could be then used. So they kept visibility at all times where the product was, and we made the process of doing the RPs automatic and the putaways very, very seamless. So the results were that over a 2-week period that we tracked when we went live with this, we did almost 2,400 receipts, about 216 per day is what we tracked. And the goal was to get it to under 24 hours from dock to put away. And just in those 2 weeks, we went from the over 2 days and over 4 days, as you can see, to under 6 hours for items that were not going through inspection, and just over a day. And since got it, well below a day at this point, but that was just the first 2 weeks of going live. So some great success there. They're very satisfied, and everyone felt like it was solved all of the problems they were looking to do with getting rid of the blind spots, with getting their time to get it into stock much quicker and make their product available to where it needed to be. So that was one example. Just in summary, from a Scan and Track overall perspective, again, it provides a mobile, real-time, always-on inventory management capability. We've got base functionality as well as some add-on modules there around picking and shipping, physical inventory, cycle counting, pallet management, and the MO processing. It's very robust and flexible, and we can, personalize it to really fit exactly what your requirements are. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to walk
Randy,
through.
this is
Yes.
Wendy. Just, we had a quick question before we proceed.
Okay.
Mark asked, does it support double byte environments, in particular Chinese?
It does. That's more at an OS level, but the product itself, I can't say that we've implemented it there. But being web-based, we're just from the web-based standpoint, it supports it. So Scan and Track would support it. That's really the only interface point.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jeff, you should be presenter now.
All right, give me a second. All right. So welcome again. Let me see if I can pull up where I'm supposed to be here. And it's out of the way. All right. So yeah, as Randy was talking, the whole idea is to streamline this whole business of receiving. It gets confusing. Got a lot of transactions in play. Receive the doc, receive the inspection, so on and so forth. So we're looking for folks that are, who's the intended audience here, right? Anybody who wants to streamline this doc receipt to put away process, shrink that lead time. Again, as Randy reiterated, where is the product? Is it on the dock? Is it an inspection? Is it in a receiving staging location? Where is the product? So we're always about record the event when it occurs and have the system reflect reality, right? So what we did was we took a look at this from a design point of view when I got involved in the R&D and said, let's look at what the scheduled receipt business object looks like in XA. That's our backbone. That's what XA would rely on. And we just want to augment that. So we did that and we lean on the scheduled receipt business object. We use as much of XA as possible. And all we're doing is fill in the voids. We want to make this as simple and as foolproof as possible. That was our original intent. Again, XA offers all these transactions. This can be confusing to the doc associate. Do I do an RI? Do I do an RD? Do I do an RP? What transaction am I up against? There's no label. We certainly can't depend on the vendor supplying us a barcoded label. We're lucky to get a packing slip from the vendor, quite frankly. So we generate our own label. We can control the label, as Randy was mentioning. What do we want to print on the label for downstream transactions, so on and so forth. So there's no label in the quality control transaction, that PQ. If you're into inspect on receipt, that's a green screen transaction. That's not even available in PowerLink. So those are the things that we were up against, trying to solve how would we fit in this to simplify the process. So what we ended up doing was, all right, got this receiving business object, and so we're just going to use PowerLink to augment that RD transaction. So the guy in the receiving will always do an RD. He doesn't have to worry about whether it's an RP or an RI. As Randy was indicating, and I'm just going to reiterate because it's worth repeating, when we do that RD transaction in PowerLink, this is not Scan and Track, this is in PowerLink. We're using the right tool, we're at the right place. We do an immediate RI if the inspect on receipt flag is on. So where do we RI it to? Well, we put it in this QC. It's got to be a QC 01 to 99. And that's dependent and clarified at the item rev level. We hijack a user field, and that's where we're going to RI it. All right. So you may have things that are particular for engineering or other areas that need, so we can put this in a particular place automatically. Nobody has to do anything. All we're doing is an RD transaction. If the inspect and on receipt flag is off, we're going to do an immediate RP. And we're going to put that to a staging location. We're not going to put it into stock, into the default stock location, because that wouldn't reflect reality. We want the system to reflect reality. Where is the product at? So we RP it into a staging location that's defined at the warehouse master level. Now, RECV, as a for instance, right? So that's the core strategy of where we're coming from here, from the beginning, before we get into the method. All right, so we do the RD. The product is either going to be sitting here or it's going to be sitting there after the RD. So what this allows us to do, number one, from a workspace point of view in PowerLink, workbench, workspace, whatever you want to do, you can monitor how long has stuff been sitting in receiving that hasn't been put away. How long has stuff been sitting in these QC areas? How much money and dollars and product is sitting in these areas that's unavailable because it hasn't been put away? Okay. So once we do that, if it's in the QC area, we need a quality control transaction. You need that PQ. We don't want to do it in green screen. So up to this point, we envision a desktop laptop sitting on a bench where the guys are taking the paperwork and doing these RD transactions and producing labels at that time. And as Randy indicated, on the label, it'll say, hey, this needs to go to this area. This needs to go to QC or whatever it might be. And then once it's in the QC area, this is where a scan and track picks up. In order to get it out of the QC area, now we're going to scan that barcode that we produced on the RD transaction. Okay, so this is where we introduce scan and track for the PQ, for the put away, and then all we're doing here on this PQ is we're simply moving it from the QC area, approved area, to a QC approved area. So from the QC area, QC whatever, to a QC approved area. This is defined in scan and track. There's a config setting where we actually define where that goes. Now, that may be just putting a green sticker on it, right? Saying this is good to go. So from a virtual point of view, we're not going to physically move it to this approved location. We're not physically going to move it. Tow motor operator is not going to do that. But internally, from a virtual point of view, we move that item saying it's no longer QC, it's approved. So we need to have a green sticker on it or something so the tow motor operator knows this could be put away. Then we simply follow it by a put away transaction. That's it's actually a TW in scan and track. We call it a put away. We envision tablets mounted to tow motors for all the scan and track transactions. We're assuming Wi-Fi. We're assuming barcoded locations. You have to have a controlled warehouse. First of all, with locations defined. That's a prerequisite. And we're assuming that they're barcoded. Now, we can help you through those logistics from a strategic point of view. Okay. If it's in the receiving location, we did the RD, no inspect on receipt required. It's going to go immediately to RP to some staging location with the barcoded label. And then we simply do the PA, the put away from the tow motor. So again, as Randy was iterating, we record the event when it occurs. We know where the inventory is at all times. Okay. Again, just an example of a different move ticket. They called it a move ticket, big and bold, inspection required. So they're saying you need to push this to QC01. They're suggesting the final put away location. In this particular case, this customer had default stock locations. Doesn't mean you have to put it there. In their case, they wanted to. They only have an item in the stock location of one place. Okay. Whatever other information you want to show over here is up to you. Maybe you want to show the vendor. They wanted to have this engineering class and so on and so forth. Okay. But yeah, the basic design mantra was just, let's use base XA. We don't modify XA code. We never have, we never will in Scan and Track. We use PowerLink and we lean on current business objects. Record the event when it occurs, okay? Real-time reporting, we don't use any OAGIS provider, iSeries journaling, there's no shadow files or anything like that. We'll either do system link, or if we need to lean on TR data and PMC, we will, like the ons and offs and the PQ. Okay. So yeah, we need materials management. We need purchasing. We need that scheduled receipts. We need controlled warehouses. I'm not going to walk through another flow chart. You'll get this on the recording, but it may help you from a picture point of view. The product arrives. The only thing we're doing is an RD. Everything else gets driven from that RD. Now down here, eventually we do a PQ and all that, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with this flow chart. But you'll have it if you want to talk about it further. And as Randy was saying, it's pretty flexible. Where do you want to do the PQ to? Where do you want to do the RP to? Stuff like so. We'll help you with that flow. Make sure it makes sense. So this is just, if you're not familiar with the scheduled receipt, this is just an example of the scheduled receipt business object. You can see whether, is batch lot required? Is the spec on receipt on? So we're looking at these flags and we're determining what to do after the RD. And of course, you can see what the updates are right here. And you'll see that we're going to do immediate update. All right, so let's get into it. About time, huh? All right, so let me pull up my scheduled receipt. I'm going to be zeroing in on this particular PO. And you can see I've got some have batch lot on, some don't. Got some with the spec on receipt, some don't. And here's my statuses. Everything's open right now. So if I click on this first one, this is part of the enhancement we did to PowerLink. And I'm just amazed at our support staff, how they can do these things and figure this stuff out so quickly and turn this stuff around. But if I open this guy up, there's an action icon, right? An action thing that you can do in PowerLink. This is vanilla XA that pops up. All I did was double click that guy. And rather than opening up in inquiry mode, it knows that I want to do an action. It knows I want to do a receipt on that business, on that particular record. That's integrator stuff. That's not rocket science. But here we come in, and here's where the magic occurs. So we know we're going to do a receive the doc, but right here, we know we're not doing inspection. So this somehow interrogated that inspect on receipt flag. And it knows that that's off, right? Right there, it's off. So we're going to go to stock, and we're going to pick that location up from the warehouse master. Remember, we said it's going to put it into a staging location. We're not going to put it in a stock location. This is the guy at the dock. He's got the paperwork in front of him. This is that, in 30 seconds or 30 minutes, we want him to put this to say, hey, we've received this off the truck, and put it into a staging location so the material handler, the fork truck driver, can put it away. So it's automatic. You can change the quantities, some other stuff down here. You could add a comment if you wanted to. This is vanilla XA. All we're doing is preloading the data. All he has to do here is click continue, and that transaction is going to fire. You can see my hourglass right there. Received the stock. Just that quick, right? So this is, again, when we can come in here, we could take a look at that inventory transaction. There it is. I did my RD and knew to do the RP. Put it into RECV as defined. So from here, once it's in RECV, if we wanted to do the put away, which is now scan and track, now I got the tow motor operator coming by with the tablet, mounted on his tow motor. This thing's somehow tagged with a label. It's got a barcoded label produced, and it's tagged. So he knows this needs to be put away. So what we do here is we got this token that we put on that label. You saw that barcoded token. That's this guy right here. So I can come into scan and track now. Remember what Randy was saying about these transactions here, right? This is all controlled by however you want to set up your badge masters. This is part of the security that Randy was alluding to before. So we set up, I could walk you through this, but I don't want to waste the time today. But at some point in time, you'll set up badge groups to decide what transactions an individual can execute. And then, a person can belong in more than one badge group. In any event, I'm going to do this put away. Right, and that's the token I would have scanned. It simply comes up and says, here's what you got, right? You're sitting in the receiving location, it knows that. Here's your part number. Here's your default stock location that we think you want to go to. Now, if the locations are barcoded, right, and he executes his transaction, he's not putting it in A, B, C, D. He would simply strike the barcode that Granny was alluding to before. Where are you putting this? If it's going to the right location, again, I'm on the tow motor. This is on a tablet. It's been transferred. Okay, so the system reflects reality. I don't do this transaction until I physically move it, and that's a done deal. So that's a simple example of going from an RD to the staging location to the put away. If you don't do inspect on receipt at all, or if you don't have a inspect on receipt defined, and maybe you just kind of look at stuff casually, in a lot of places they don't have a formal inspect on receipt. But in some cases, it's part number by part number. So if you have some items that need to be inspected before they get approved, then we can certainly do that. So let me come back here. So here's one that it has inspect on receipt on. This guy right here. So notice if I'm just a normal integrator, PowerLink, it recognizes that this needs to go to inspection. And this QC, where did that QC01 come from? That was predefined at the item rev level. You can have up to 99 inspection locations. Now, you may only have one, but you may have some that are, for various different types of inspections that may need to occur. Notice the to stock is off. This guy has batch lot on, so look at this. I'm going to automatically assign a batch lot number. So we could talk about that too. If you have during the implementation, if you have batch lot control on, how do you want to assign this batch lot number? So there's various algorithms or methods you may want to employ. This is batch lot 60. I'm just going to click continue. You'll get the hourglass. Notice this does not say received to stock because it's not in stock. When you receive things to inspection in XA, it doesn't show as in stock. It'll show in that location. Because like Randy was saying about the MRP and edible information, it's not available. It still shows as a scheduled receipt until it's approved. So this is where you could set up your multiple workspaces, workbenches, say what is sitting out here that needs to be addressed? How long has it been sitting there? In any event, I can come in here, display my transactions again, and there it is. There's my RD. Now I got an RI, right? So I received this to QC01. There's my batch lot, all good and fine. Come in here. I can grab this guy. And now I'm going to do a PQ, right? That's sitting in, I can't do a put away. It's sitting in QC. So again, I'm going to move that to a QC approved location based on that token. And here it is. There's my item number. It knows it's in QC01. This is just a regular transaction available in XA. We're just mimicking it. And there's the approved location. How did it know where to put it? Well, we define that, remember, in the config. So that's the approved location. Now, we're not physically going to move that product from here to here. The product is not physically going to move. We'll put a green sticker on it or something. But from a virtual point of view, we know it's approved. That's the point. So I can look up stuff on this location and this location. If it's been approved, why hasn't it been put away? How long has it been sitting here with this green sticker on it as approved? There's my batch lot number. Everything looks good. It's just typical PQ transaction, and that's complete. Now, if I do a file refresh, there you go. So now it's in stock. Even though it's in QC approved, it now shows up as available inventory, and it's in a location. We know where it's at. Again, I can turn around at this point. Come back into the inventory transactions. There's my PQ. I can grab this. You know, it was the RI that generated the barcode. So I come into this transaction. I can grab this guy one more time if I wanted to, just to show you. Right? Come back to home. All pretty user friendly. And there you go. Now we're coming from the approved. It knows where it's at. Tow motor operators grab this. All he's doing is go put it, the label said where to put it. So if he doesn't put it here, it's incumbent on him to, the cursor's positioned here. Just scan the right location. If you're putting it here, just click on, and now that got through the, we did the PQ and the put away. So the RD transaction in PowerLink Direct starts the traffic, decides it's going to put it in an inspection location or a staging location. Then we pick up with the tow motor operator saying, okay, something's been approved or it needs to be put away. And that pretty much wraps up my part of it. I just wanted to walk you through those. And I got to tell you, I've been through this a few times, working with customers, and everybody has a little bit of a twist. And when we go back to Randy and the team, they seem to be able to, I'm just telling you, they seem to be able to knock this out, these tweaks in I'll call it a New York second. Randy, can I turn it back to you?
Yeah, sure. Wendy, any Q&A in the chat box that we need to address?
No, Randy, we don't have any additional questions, but at this moment, if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat right now. And we'll give you a moment to see if any questions pop in. We just had the one about supporting double byte environments.
Yeah, and we can certainly set up more personalized demos for individuals. Obviously, this webinar type format isn't conducive to interaction, but you know, we were focusing just on the PO receiving portion of Scan and Track today, and what we've done at a couple different customers is actually very similar from what you could see. It just, there were some differences, but same concept essentially. But we can also talk about cycle counting, pick, pack, ship. If you have pallets, we can do a demo with that. Same with the iWizards, the MO processing. Really, any of the transactions that you'd like to see, we can personalize a demo.
Am I still sharing my screen, Randy?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So,
So
let just to kind of chime in, if there is interest, we could, like Randy said, we could talk. We do have a Scan and Track questionnaire that we could send you that would help facilitate what is your current state and your desired future state. Do you have line locations? Do you have barcoding? Do you have Wi-Fi? Do you have stocking? Do you even have a controlled warehouse, right? Do you have staging locations? So on and so forth. So we will review that questionnaire. We call it a limited discovery, just to kind of start defining the scope. And then normally what happens is we would do some sort of a proof of concept to make sure you're comfortable with things. And so, but that's downstream. But I just want to let you know, maybe the next step, if the interest prevails, would be fill out the Scan and Track questionnaire.
thanks, Jeff. We do not have any questions, but would like to just let everyone know on this webinar, we do have some exciting webinars coming up. If you are on this webinar, you will be receiving email invitations for our August guide product webinar for item availability. And then we have another webinar in September for our System Link Toolkit product. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we welcome the opportunity to answer any questions you may have. Jeff's email, jsnyder@ and Randy Kenny, Kenny at Guide Technologies. They are always available to answer your questions, and like Randy said, perhaps provide a more personalized demo if you would like. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for attending. Appreciate it. Look forward to supporting you.